Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Help My Business is Growing, a podcast where we explore how to grow and build a business that is healthy and sustainable. I'm your host, Kathy Svitina. Creating unique and engaging content is a critical marketing tool for your growing business because it can help attract new customers and it sets you apart from the competition. However, with more and more people using AI, particularly ChatGPT, and I'm recording this in April of 2023, and the thing is everywhere. When I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. So it seems like that creating content is going to be getting harder to stay ahead of the curve because as more people are producing it, you have to produce more, and it's kind of like a snowball effect. At least it seems so. But is that really true? So what we're going to be discussing in this podcast is how should you as a business use this well so that you do not get left behind? And how does AI impact the thought leadership creation? And what are some of the challenges and opportunities that come with using AI, particularly ChatGPT? And how can you leverage this technology to grow your business and drive success in the right way? Because as you were here in the episode, there is definitely the right and the wrong way to use this type of technology, at least as of right now. And a quick reminder, all of the episodes on this podcast, including this one, come with their own timestamps for topics that we discuss, and each one has its own blog post as well. So you can just go scan it also instead of listening to it, if that's what you prefer. You can find all the links and the detailed topics in this episode show notes. So my guest today is going to be Stephanie Nivinskus. She is the CEO of SizzleForce Marketing, a fractional CMO agency that services scaling companies. And since 1995, she has been developing brand building marketing campaigns that have been used by companies such as Starbucks, Quiksilver, the National Football League, and Cox Communications, along with thousands of privately owned companies. She has written for Forbes and Entrepreneur magazines and is the author of international #1 bestseller book called Absolutely Unforgettable, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Creating a Heart-Centered Brand and Standing Out in the Noisy World. Join us. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here because we're going to be talking about something that is really, really relevant at this point. We're recording this in April 2023, and you do not have to go far to hear about this new shiny object called ChatGPT. The world has gone crazy about it, and there's how-to guides popping up every second. I lived on LinkedIn, and it's absolutely insane. It's an interesting tool, and there's definitely a lot of potential for any industry. Although I will say that there's some things about it that worry me. Data privacy is a significant one at this point. And just before we go any further, I want to make this as a public service announcement that please do not put any confidential information in ChatGPT or any of these tools, nothing that you would not want in the front of a newspaper, because there's been instances when people have seen other people's prompts and people leaking confidential information. There's just an article that came out about 2 weeks ago about Samsung employees doing that. So that is my PSA for the day. But saying that, I'm starting to see that there's this almost like commoditization of content. And because this threshold of producing content has actually been lowered, the bar has been lowered because everyone can do that now. So when everyone can do it, obviously there's more volume and there's more C, D rated content out there. There's a way to use this in a good way and in a bad way. So let's talk about this. What have you seen, and how do you use that to really develop your own thought leadership, and how do you use that into your advantage?
Yeah, great question. So one thing that I like to tell people is that when you're developing thought leadership, it's really important to have great content, but it's also important to have speed, right? So like right now, you are developing more thought leadership because you're doing a podcast on AI, which is the hot trending news. And everybody needs to keep that stuff in mind. Now, when developing content for thought leadership with AI, it's super duper important that people understand AI is amazing for what we call ideation. Okay.
Mhm.
Developing your first drafts for developing content that can give you a real big head start on what you want to share. However, AI used in isolation is a problem. AI used in isolation is regurgitation, and it's not going to impress Google and it's not going to impress anybody who reads it because it's going to be literally a regurgitation of what everybody else has already said. AI, when coupled with human intelligence, meaning you take what AI starts and then sizzle it up with human intelligence, is where the magic happens. And that is when you get to take the foundational elements that AI has developed, sprinkle it with your human intelligence and your unique insights as a thought leader in your industry, and bada boom, bada bang, you've got great stuff.
So how does this work in practice? Let's say that you're trying to create a blog. Do you have an example? Like, how would someone be able to use the AI well to their advantage as an ideation, but also take their experience, their thought leadership, and embed that in there? How would that look like?
When it comes specifically to Chat GPT, there's like literally thousands of AI solutions at this point, but let's focus on Chat GPT. Okay. When you're using that tool, one thing that you absolutely must keep top of mind is the quality of the outputs that you get from Chat GPT are directly proportional to the quality of the inputs you give it, right? So you feed Chat GPT a great prompt that's really well thought out and really detailed, you're going to get content spit out that's much higher level than if you do something super generic. Okay. So, for example, a lot of times when people are first starting to dabble in AI, specifically Chat GPT, they might get one of these like free prompts that are flooding the internet right now. A lot of the free prompts, a lot of the things that get 100 prompts for $9, that stuff that's everywhere, the prompts,
Yeah.
mostly they're garbage. They're garbage, which is why they're being given away for free or really cheap. Okay. I'm a fierce believer in detailed quality prompts. So if you are trying to get AI to write a blog post for you, you're going to want to feed it a lot of information. You're going to want to tell it what the purpose of the blog post is. You're going to want to explain who your audience is, what your audience cares about. You're going to want to highlight any important points that you want it to cover. You're going to need to tell it what keywords you need integrated into the content. You're going to need to tell it how long the content should be. If you want it broken up with metadata, if you're into all the SEO stuff, you need to instruct it to do that. And usually, before you have it write anything, you need to do marketing research so you can also feed it with the research. For example, you could go to ChatGPT and let's say you wanted to write a blog on how AI is impacting the food service industry. Okay.
Mhm.
Randomly. So I would say your first step is go to AI and do that marketing research, find it out. Don't just do it on Google. Go in ChatGPT and say, to my knowledge, the food industry has been impacted in these ways. Tell me 5 other ways that the food industry has been impacted or will be impacted by AI. Okay,
Mhm.
cite your sources. Then, once you've done a decent amount of research, then you feed in that deeper level prompt about who your blog is being written for, what the goal of it is, and what is the big idea you're trying to convey. And what action do you want people to take as a result of reading your blog? Feed that, then with all that information, ChatGPT can write some quality content for you. Your thought leadership can be inserted along the way when you're writing your prompt. You can say something along the lines of, make sure that you address the fact that AI blah 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 in the food industry. This needs to be 60% of the article or whatever you want it to be. And then you feed all that in, and boom, you're going to get something fairly decent. You're going to have to sprinkle it with human intelligence when you're done. Do not go into AI thinking it's copy and paste. It's not. If you do that, you're going to get yourself in trouble. Your content's going to be lame. Google's not going to like it. You might even enter some legal risk, because who knows what's going to happen with plagiarism and ethics and blah, blah, blah.
And the other thing that you mentioned here, which I think is really important with sources, because I've noticed here, and I've used AI for probably about a year and a half now, before even ChatGPT was out there. There were other tools that were obviously available that I was using, and I've dabbled with them before. One of the things that's really important is, and to understand if that's your experience as well, is that you have to ask, if there are specific things, you have to ask for sources and actually go check those sources, because they might not be correct. So it doesn't spit factually correct information. So you really need to understand whether that is correct or not, and you have to do your due diligence. Would you agree with that?
150%. ChatGPT will tell you that itself.
Yeah.
And I know that because I asked it. I mean, I believe it's in their terms of service as well, right? Warnings will pop up here, there, and everywhere. But I actually went in and did a prompt, and I said, tell me about all of the risks I'm taking as a business owner using ChatGPT to contribute to the content that I put out. And it said, well, as an AI learning machine, something like, I do the best I can to provide true content, but really it's on you, girl. So, in not so many words, that's what it said. And so, we as business owners and leaders, absolutely, the buck stops with us, and we have to do our due diligence.
This is very interesting, because I have seen agencies that using AI as a essentially an employee replacement. I have seen people in the last couple of months doing a lot of restructuring the way how they're hiring people. And they have let some people go, especially the writers and copywriters, and they're replacing them with AI. I like the idea from a cost perspective. It's very risky from my perspective here. And I would really not advocate for this, is because I think the technology has been so new at this point, and there's a lot of, like we've said, you have to really understand how to use it well. So my question for you is, if someone is hiring an agency, like a marketing agency, and essentially you're paying them a couple of grand a month to produce content for you, and all of a sudden now they're using AI, how do you make sure that the content that they're really producing, one, it's good quality, and two, that they are really doing their due diligence and fact checking, and that the quality that doesn't slip? I know this is a very it's a very loaded question, but what I'm concerned is with the fact that the agencies are going to start firing the people using ChatGPT and starting producing like subpar content, just because there's so much content out there. We're just going to be a content mill and using the AI instead of people. What's your take on that?
First of all, I think any agency that does that is stupid. To be completely blunt, short-sighted, very short-sighted. Yep. The reason why is, in my perspective, AI is an amazing marketing research assistant. AI does not replace your copywriters, not if you want 100% unique original content. Okay, now certain types of AI will say everything is unique and original. It's not possible to be unique and original. That is not what AI does. So I don't know why people even fight that battle, because I mean, it's like black and white. So I own a marketing agency. We are integrating AI into our practices. Is it replacing my copywriters and content writers and social media marketer, etc.? Absolutely not. Okay, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, we're really just getting this AI party started. I mean, yes, it's been around for several years. Yes, most marketers who have been in the business for any amount of time have been using it at least for a few years now, right? But ChatGPT became all the rage in November. And I think that any marketer worth their salt knows that this is very much in the beginning stages. There are a lot of ethical questions yet to be answered. There are a lot of legal questions yet to be addressed by the U.S. Copyright Office. I think that It's totally inappropriate to think that AI can replace a professional copywriter or content writer or social media marketer at this point. Now, what it can do is save those people a tremendous amount of time because of the ideation. But especially anybody who considers themselves a creative professional, you take pride in contributing your human intelligence to the work. That is what fuels your soul and lights your heart on fire. You don't want to give that up to a robot. You want the robot to do the heavy lifting, the boring, the marketing research, the blah, and then spit that out, and then you add the sizzle to it. Now, answering your question about how do you make sure it's good quality, I mean, it's very subjective. Okay, it's very subjective. What I can tell you is, for example, if you're looking for quality that Google deems as being quality content, you're going to want to make sure that the content follows what they call the EAT formula, EEAT. I think it's experience, expertise, authority, and trust. If the content communicates those four things, Google will likely see it as good content, good quality content that may rank. If it doesn't, probably won't rank. Or it might rank for some really lame keyword that doesn't get a lot of traffic. Aside from that, good quality is a subjective thing. I can write something and be like, this is good. And someone else can read it and be like, that's not good. It didn't appeal to them. So it's a hard question to answer.
When we were talking about using it as a tool, I like to think of these tools as just because, for example, a carpenter, right? They can use an electric tool, they can use a manual hammer, right? And right now, people were using hammers to get stuff done. They can get much faster done with electric tools. And just because you're switching a tool, it doesn't mean that you don't still need expertise, because you can give me a hammer or an electric tool and I have no idea how to build a house.
Right.
No clue. Just like with marketing and with copywriter, whether you give them, you still need the talent to figure out how to actually use that well so that they can do their job correctly.
And here's the thing, too. When it comes to copywriting specifically, it's all based around psychology, right?
Yep.
How humans think and behave. And so AI doesn't know that stuff. You got to tell them that stuff. Not them, it. You have to feed it that information. And you still have to have that eye to spot it. Like, yes, this meets a need. Yes, this talks to a specific target client. Yes, this has a sense of urgency. Yes, this is going to pique curiosity and make people want to open it, right? And those are all things that your professionals have studied and put years of blood, sweat, and tears into developing the eye to spot that or create it from scratch. AI is going to put something out, and as far as AI is concerned, it's good enough. But is it really?
Yeah. And have you noticed that there's some dead giveaways that person has just taken whatever the system spit out and they have just slapped their name on it and that's it? Are there something that is just a dead giveaway that happened?
Yeah, there are. Okay, I have seen so many ads popping up on Facebook lately that start with the word attention! Exclamation point. GPT, dead giveaway. I've also seen so many people using Midjourney to create images with AI.
Mm-hmm.
You look really closely at the images. If there's hands or arms in it, they might have 8 fingers on one hand. I saw this one image the other day where somebody was holding a bowl of cereal and the spoon was like literally as long as my leg. Okay. The spoon, it was totally out of proportion. And it looked like it had gotten into a fight with the garbage disposal because it was all like tweaked in the way it was shaped. And furthermore, the way that the fictitious person that was supposed to look like a real person was holding the spoon, there was like this extremely awkward amount of space between their index finger and their middle finger, right? Like it looked like 4 inches of space. It was just super weird. And holding a bowl that way with this spoon the size of my leg, And the thing is, a lot of times, if you don't have a background in marketing, you may not be in the habit of looking for the details. And when it comes to AI, you have to be extremely detail oriented. You have to look at the little things. Otherwise, you're going to put out an image with someone who has 8 arms and looks like an octopus. And then you're going to notice it after the fact and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And you're going to be all embarrassed and you're going to have to backpedal. So just get in the habit, put on, I always tell my team, put on your eagle eyes. You are looking for the little details and your job is to catch them.
Yeah. I tried doing some, like I said, experimentation with images because for my content, I use a lot of illustrations, and I figured, it'll be interesting to do that. And it did not go well. So I am definitely keeping my illustrator. That is 110% surety right there.
Yeah, good move. Good move to keep your illustrator. I am keeping my designer as well. What I can tell you though is that my designer is like all into AI. Like she's having the time of her life playing with this stuff because she sees incredible things in her mind and sometimes just needs a new perspective of how to put it all together. Right.
Yep.
So she can go into Midjourney and she can write this killer prompt that puts out something like wicked cool, right? That wouldn't even cross my mind as someone who's not a designer. And then she can take that and further enhance it. Midjourney's not going to put out something, a vector image that's ready for print, right? You can go to it and use it, for example, for idea generation for a new logo. But is it going to create something that you can then trademark? And is it something that you'll be able to just download it and use it in your print materials and blow up and have on banners and or a car wrap, whatever? No, it's not. You still need your creative professionals to polish it with the human intelligence.
So with the illustrations, obviously there has to be an idea. What are we actually going to do an illustration for? And I do a lot of education on, financial topics. And I like to do personification of financial topics, like illustrations of them.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times what I would do is I would use AI to figure out that ideation of, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Give me some ideas of a picture representation of this. And it gives like 5, 6 ideas and it just sparks that thing. I obviously then change it and put some of my own ideas in it and then send it over to the illustrator to actually make that into a picture. And it's been working extremely well.
Yeah, that's a great way to use it. That's perfect.
So we've talked about agencies using it, but I also want to, are there any other ways that people can use AI to their benefit besides the content, besides the marketing? Is there anything else that you have seen that has worked really well for your clients?
Well, I live in the marketing world, so all of my attention has been focused on marketing solutions for AI. I know there's AI for everything. My husband owns an architecture firm. There's AI in his industry. I'm like, I don't think I would trust AI to make the plans for my next skyscraper, right? Like, I don't think we're there yet. So honestly, I haven't looked outside of marketing. Inside the marketing realm, there's an AI for everything you can imagine. Really.
Yeah.
There is and every day it is just evolving so insanely rapidly. It's amazing. It's exciting.
It is. It'll be interesting what happens a year from now. And I have seen on LinkedIn some people popping up on actually legal profession using AI. Obviously, they do not use ChatGPT. They use other specifically developed AI for them that it's actually helping them do legal briefs. So now when you put in the cases, it will actually pull up legal briefs for you and you can write it really fast. So I thought that was a really interesting case of using AI. For me, in the finance world, what we have now too, Excel is actually developing its own AI system where you can, I don't know what is it called exactly. I think they've just rolled it out to users where you can just ask it questions about the numbers that you have in the spreadsheet and it will give you answers. So I thought these were interesting use cases, and it's definitely exciting to see that happening.
Yeah, that would be super helpful. It sounds like for me, I'm really good with words. I'm not very good with numbers and finance. Like what your strength is, that's my weakness, right? And for somebody like me, if it did that, if I could go in and I could say, what are the sales patterns that we can find here? You know, what's the most profitable? Or where's the most untapped opportunity in this revenue stream? Or something like that. That would be super cool. Or, spit out a financial report that shows the growth in this one sector or whatever. I don't know what Excel's AI is going to do, but that's exciting.
Yeah, especially because it replaces an analytical that's really number crunching spreadsheet work. And I know a lot of finance people are kind of afraid of that, but I always say that just gives you more opportunity to actually have conversations and talk about strategy and to talk about all the things that we really should be doing versus number crunching. So that's my little content around AI for finance people. So it's very exciting.
One thing you touched on, people are afraid of this. Okay. And I think that's a topic worth exploring because it's new and it's different. And people in general do not like change, right? But, when we talk about being afraid, I mean, I am the first person to say, as someone who's made my career out of writing, 28 years I've been doing this professionally. And along comes a little robot that someone has programmed who threatens to take my job. Yeah, at first, all my defenses were up. And I was like, well, it's going to be terrible work. It's going to, I had all kinds of negative fodder to share about it. That was fear based. Okay. And then I decided, okay, wait a minute here. I can either be friends with AI or I can be enemies with AI. But here's what we know: AI is not going away.
True.
And so if you decide to be enemies with AI and not integrate it into what you're doing with your business, you're being very, very short sighted. It's kind of like if you go back to the 90s, it's like saying, oh, that .com thing, yeah, that's just a fad. That internet thing, or that
Yeah.
social media thing called, what is it? The Facebook, right? Just a fad. It won't last. We should have learned our lessons by now, right? At the same time, I think back to things like what was happening 100 years ago. Do you think people that had only spent their life riding in horse and buggies were scared when cars came out? And it was like, yeah, get in this box and turn the key, and an engine starts and it will move. They were probably terrified, right? It was
Yeah.
terrifying. It's like, how do I control this thing? What do I do? And now, of course, it's normal for all of us to drive cars. I think with any type of innovation that's happened throughout time, it's scary, but scary is good. Scary stretches us to be better. Scary forces us to adapt. Scary challenges us to bring our best to the table. So it's good stuff.
It's funny, as you were saying this, we were just over at the Smithsonian Museum over the weekend, and it's interesting because they had a whole exhibit of the world of progress and going all back to like the 1800s, right? And it's interesting to see how the world has actually evolved just in the last short, not even 120 years. That is a blink of an eye. And we have made so much progress. The internet, even me, my generation, we did not have the internet until we were teenagers. And I'm not that old. I mean, it's crazy to think how much progress we have made in technology and AI. It feels like it's the next era. There's something significantly momentous about this.
There really is. And that's why it's so important for people to rapidly adopt it. Now, that doesn't mean like throw away the caution flag at all. You
Yep.
do need to be cautious. You need to have your due diligence in place, right? don't stick your head in the sand and think, oh, this is just for the tech people, or this is just for the marketers, or this is just for whoever you want to fill in the blank with, because it's not. It's the Jetsons in real time. Remember the cartoon, The Jetsons?
I
Yeah,
do.
I have a girlfriend who actually does a lot of AI stuff for LinkedIn. And she had this great analogy that she shared about a month ago on a live that she did. And she brought up pictures from the Jetsons cartoon and said, remember when we were kids and George Jetson had a watch that would communicate with him? Well, hello, now we all have Apple Watches, right? And then it said, and remember when they could just have dinner and it would magically appear in front of them without Mrs. Jetson having to cook anything? Well, hello, Uber Eats, right? Or whatever it is. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. The Jetsons, it's really happening. The only thing that's not happening is flying cars. But, Elon, when is it happening?
It'll be here before you know it. Stephanie, this has been a very insightful conversation. And I ask this every single guest that comes on this podcast. And we always end up, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone who is starting to use AI, what would you give them?
I would say get trained in how to do it right.
Okay.
It's not necessarily intuitive. Okay. It's not necessarily intuitive. And I think that a lot of people are selling worthless shortcuts. And like anything good, you got to put in the work to get what you really want. Okay. So does that mean that you have to spend 1,000 hours like we have studying all of this? No, absolutely not. But learning from us is really smart because we've already put in the blood, sweat, and tears. If you just go into ChatGPT or Jasper or Midjourney or whatever, and you dabble, you might have some fun, right? It might be interesting. Are you going to actually get results that will create marketing assets or assets in any capacity for your brand that set you apart in a very noisy market? No, you're not. You're not. You're going to get a lot of generic stuff. So find the professionals who have studied this inside and out and learn from them. Don't try and just DIY it because A, it's going to take you forever to get anywhere, and B, you don't have that time to waste. You're too busy.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't have that time to waste.
Yeah.
Stephanie, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at SizzleForce.com. And if you do want to learn, we actually have a special up right now at a different website address. It's Sizzle Suite, meaning SUITE. So SizzleSuite.com/special. We are actually launching a course in May on how to use AI for business. So would love to see some of you there if you want to learn.
That's fabulous, Stephanie. This is very helpful. And thank you so much for being on the show. It's been absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. And I hope that this episode has given you some good insights on how you can actually use this new technology. Because as we've discussed in this episode, AI does not seem to be going away. It is truly a new thing that is here to stay. And we will all have to learn how do we actually use it and use it well to our advantage. Also, if you love this episode, you can find all the timestamps, show notes, blog posts, and links and more on the website, newcastlefinance.us/podcast. And before I go, I do have a favor to ask. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you could please take some time and go to the show, tap the number of stars that you think the show deserves, because it helps other people find it and benefit from it as well. Thanks so much. Until next time.